In today's episode of Burnout Banter, we're diving headfirst into how we can overcome burnout, particularly for those in the construction industry who are already feeling its weight. We've discussed extensively how burnout can deeply affect your physical health, mental well being, and overall quality of life in previous episodes. Rather than dwelling solely on the challenges posed by burnout in our industry, our focus today is on providing practical strategies and insights to help those who are experiencing burnout reclaim alignment in both their work and professional lives. Our goal today is straightforward, although the solutions we discuss may not be. Assist individuals in the construction industry in combating burnout, reigniting their passion for work, and forging a more gratifying career path. So join us as we navigate ways to replenish energy, discover purpose, and thrive amidst the unique challenges of the construction industry. Hi, everybody. My name's Jeff.
And I'm Rochelle.
And this
is Burnout Banter.
Before we jump into today's episode, remember to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen so that you can stay up to date with the latest banter. So, Rochelle, how's it going?
Good. It's an extra crispy day. How are you, Jeff?
Yes, it's been crispy since Thanksgiving, I feel like.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's been a very intense start to the year.
I think that's true for most people, honestly. It seems like every time I talk to whoever it is, whether it's like proposal side, engineering side, construction side, everyone's like, I just have to make it to this date, or I just have to make it to April, I just have to make it to May and I'll be okay. But that date just keeps getting pushed further and further back. So I think we're all feeling this strain right now of stress and burnout and industry pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing because it means the construction industry is doing well overall, or at least it seems to be.
I mean, yes, I would like it to be doing well without putting that price on people's well-being, but here we are, learning how to protect ourselves, so
yeah,
we'll do our best.
Yeah. So I thought we'd start today just by reviewing some of the symptoms of burnout. If you remember, there were three. Do you remember what any of the three are?
I'm going to go based on what I feel right now, which is exhausted.
Exhaustion. Yes, that's
number one sign of burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to a point where I wasn't really like falling asleep on the couch at night watching TV, but that's kind of come back here recently, and it doesn't seem to matter how much I sleep or what. I'm exhausted at the end of the day, so I'm definitely feeling that one as well.
I've gotten back to the waking up tired, no matter how much sleep I get at night. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. That's either like I don't want to do something and I want to stay in bed, or I have so much sleep debt that I just can't feel rested. So we're working on that right now.
Yeah, but I mean, that's an important point too. I think if we are having a hard time waking up, there can be something that we are trying to avoid.
Yeah, it's so much easier to get up on the weekend when I don't have to work.
Yes, much easier to get up. Another symptom of burnout is cynicism, so increased negativity towards your job, thinking that things aren't going to get better, stuff like that.
Doesn't matter. Right. Just going to keep doing the same things. I'm not going to try to change anything because no one listens to me anyway. I hear it. Even if the nobody listening is me not listening to myself.
That's right. A little different when we work on our own, but
my boss is brutal. I cannot for the life of me remember what the third one is.
It is inefficacy. So not feeling like you're being productive or efficient or accomplishing what you want to accomplish during the day.
A to-do list that never ends. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Or I think feeling like you're not really making a difference or it doesn't matter.
Yeah, if we don't get this proposal, there will just be another one. So why bother?
I've been covering CA, construction administration, for somebody who's out dealing with some health issues, and That is the perfect example of no matter how good of a job you do, it never stops.
Oh, no. Oh, no. What it
Questions
like
from the field just keep on coming.
Gotcha. Until it's done, then it's
Until it's done.
construction.
Or,
Okay.
or maybe 6 months after it's done.
Warranty. I forget about warranty.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which is interesting because some of his health issues and health issues that have come around have been from dealing with the same stuff, and he got to the point of burnout. So
Your body, if you don't listen to it, it will make you listen to it, which is what I am realizing. As you might be able to hear in my voice, I'm recovering from a cold that I kept telling people was allergies, and it's just after 2 weeks of travel and not sleeping, I got home and my body was like, "You will sit on this couch, and you will eat soup, and you will not move." So,
does have a way of telling us that we need to slow down.
does.
So, we have the symptoms of burnout, which I think are really important to know and recognize. Um, there can also be situational factors related to our job and people that we're working with, changes to our team, stuff like that. Um, but I think that's kind of a whole nother topic of how to address everybody else. So today we're just going to focus on us.
Fix what we can control. I like it.
And maybe in a future episode, we'll tackle what to do about the whole team.
Yes, I think we should. So just stay tuned for that. It will come.
So why do you think awareness is important when it comes to burnout?
I think if you don't pay attention, like we just said, your body will make you pay attention. So it's really important to be aware of what your boundaries are, what your stress level is, and not only be aware of it, but listen to it and course correct before you get extra crispy, before you end up uh, sick or in the hospital, like many, many people do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, what's interesting is I think working in this industry, it's very cyclical, right? Like there are going to be times where it's maybe not quite as intense and we're not as burned out. There are going to be other times where it is more intense. And just because we talk about this stuff all the time doesn't mean that we don't burn out either. I wish that was the case. We should get some sort of exemption or something like that.
We're super aware of our burnout. We should be masters at this.
But I do think that is a real thing because if I look back on future times when I've been burned out and I didn't really know what was going on, this is different because I recognize what's happening. I have awareness around it. And so I do think that makes a huge difference. Otherwise, we're just kind of questioning what's wrong with us and why am I so tired? And um, why do I not care about my job? And
I think that in understanding our burnout and understanding our cycles, we have a better opportunity to give ourselves grace, even if we can't immediately course correct our burnout because of those, environmental external factors. We can still find places within our life where we can exert control to kind of mitigate the effects, if that makes sense. And then I think that's the big difference between me being burnt out now and me being burnt out 10 years ago when I didn't even know that burnout was a thing. Right.
yeah, yeah, it makes a huge difference. Even just being aware of what's going on inside of us.
And talking about it with other people too, is a huge thing that I think comes from that awareness as well. Like, I talk about this a lot where I didn't know how to communicate my stress and my issues way, way back in the beginning of my career, which essentially was burnout, and telling people I was like, "This is ridiculous. Like, why are we doing it this way? Why does any of this matter?" But now I can come to the table and talk to other people about like, okay, you're saying these things to me, and I recognize that this is probably you have hit your limit and you're starting to cycle into burnout. So let's change the course of this conversation to address that instead of putting a band-aid on the words that you're actually saying to me. There's like understanding that undercurrent.
Yeah, that's a great point. So
My
if we
clients
had,
are very burnt out.
yeah,
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say. So once we have awareness, then I think it's really important that we accept that we are burned out. Like we can fight it, we can deny it. That's just gonna make it worse, compound upon itself. I think with awareness of what it is and some acceptance, right, we can get to the point where we're not judging ourselves. We're not resisting the fact that we're in burnout. We've, even talking to Sally earlier in this season where she was, I don't know if she was resisting it or not, but there was this part of her that was burned out. And so, how can you just accept that that's how it is right now?
I think that didn't work with her story of herself as this like super awesome, go get amazing woman, which she is, regardless of being burnt out or not. And so I think there was a little bit of understanding and then acceptance by the end of the episode, I hope.
Yeah, and I've seen her bounce back, like because I work with her, and I've seen some of the great stuff she's doing now. So she did take time and catch up, and now she's kind of back to being who she was. So
Love it. So there's hope for all of us, is what
there
I'm
is hope.
hearing. One day. I feel
Yeah,
like you and I are in the acceptance phase as well. Like, yes, we talk about burnout and we're trying to prevent or help anybody who is burnt out get back on the path. Uh, but we are able to do that because we have accepted our cycles of burnout and we have accepted that they are inevitable just because this industry is brutal and we will cycle out of it eventually and be in a better place and we'll cycle back into it and have to deal with it. So,
yeah, yeah, I agree. And you throw in some outside of work factors as well, and um, kids' sports schedules. The sports machine is in full effect at the moment. So I was just talking. I ran into a friend at a conference on Friday, and we were saying how we should catch up. And she's like, "How does July sound?" And I was like, "Yeah, sounds great." And she's like, "I'm joking, but not really. How does July sound?" So
I feel that. I've been trying to schedule, like, client lunches, since February, and it's here now, April, and we're probably gonna kick those into May because it's just it's wild. That's okay.
yeah, and we still have one more trip in us here for this conference season. So
Nurk, we're coming for you. Extra crispy, lots of flavor. What do we do, Jeff,
yeah,
when we get burnt out? We have accepted, we are aware of our symptoms, we have accepted that we are in our burnout cycle. What do you do then?
yeah. So I think there's a handful of things that you can do. I was actually speaking to a client in a session on Saturday, and she had fallen into the habit of sleeping on her couch because it
Oh
was
boy.
easier for her to get up and wake up at 3 in the morning when she wanted to wake up to get back
Oh,
to work. And
oh,
so,
no.
yeah, yeah, and eating, not eating well and no exercise. And so, I think the first thing that we can really do is prioritize self care, getting a good amount of sleep in your bed, as
Yes.
long as your bed's
Self-care is not selfish.
right. Eating well, exercising, getting some social connection with friends. I mean, it was great to bump into somebody at a conference that I haven't seen for over a year because we've just all been so busy.
Right. Right. All these things that we sacrifice as we start unbalancing and putting different priorities, work priorities above everything else. Super important. What if so we've put this stuff on the back burner for a reason, right? Like I've
Yeah.
talked about this in the past also. One of the things that I notice right away when I'm starting to burn out is that I stop cooking, which is like meditate. I love cooking. It's like my space to just zone out and chill, and it's very cathartic to me. So when I stop cooking and I start doing these like quick meals, I can tell I'm stressed. and I have prioritized probably a proposal deadline. So if I have done that, it's probably because I feel like I have no choice but to sacrifice some of my personal time for that proposal deadline. How do I reestablish, like, how do I make time for this self-care?
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? The question becomes time, right? We don't feel like we have enough time. And I think in these instances where we fall back into old habits or old routines, there's something comfortable about that. And I know that's how it was for my client. Like she's comfortable getting up at 3 in the morning and working till 7 o'clock and zoning out on the couch for a couple hours and falling asleep on the couch. That's what she does when she's in fear. So I think, first of all, we have to track our time. Like, how are you spending your time? Right. Because we kind of have to disprove this myth that we don't have enough time. And in tracking our time, we can actually see what we're prioritizing. I think it'll make it a lot clearer than just kind
Okay.
of going based off of our gut or what we feel like we're doing. Yeah. Because it's real. It doesn't feel like you have enough time. And that's why
It never does. I feel like you gave me this tip many years ago, and I built in a time code on my timesheet for like Rochelle's personal life.
Okay. Yeah.
And probably need to revisit this exercise because I remember for like a month or two, I was tracking like how often I spent like doing a hobby or writing or whatever, like in my normal like day, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I was shocked at how little that number was. You think that I could spare myself like 5 hours a week, and I couldn't. So it was very alarming to me that I couldn't give up an hour for myself to just make a healthy meal or to read a book or to sleep in if I needed it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I was in this same conference, I was in a session where she was talking about time tracking and what you prioritize in your day. And, so we have 24 hours in a day. So 8 of those were sleeping. That gives you 16 hours. If we're spending 8 to 10 hours a week or a day at work, which most of us probably are, if not more, that leaves you 4 to 6 hours a day for everything else that you have to do in your life, whether that be family, you, kids.
it's
Um,
so much life maintenance to squeeze into. Like life maintenance takes a whole day.
yeah,
Was like, have you gotten to the weekend
laundry,
and like spent your entire Saturday doing laundry, cleaning the house, running
groceries.
errands, meal prepping for the week, and then you get to Sunday and you're like, what have I done? What am I doing?
Yeah,
How
and
do
I
you
actually,
squeeze that into 4 hours
I
a
was talking to
day?
one of my employees, and our company gives Good Friday off, and so we had this 3 day weekend. And she's like, it was fantastic. Like one day I was really productive, one day I had fun, and then I got to rest and get ready for work. It's like, yeah, that's
That's
adding that
ideal.
extra, it makes a huge difference. So if only we could figure out how to have a 4 day work week.
Heads up, employers.
Mhm.
I feel like there's a study about that. We'll find it for the next episode.
Yeah, and I think when you're tracking your time to tracking your energy, right? Like, how do I feel right now? Or what am I, if I do this, how do I feel about it? If I do this, how do I feel about it? So we can kind of start to figure out what is energizing us, what's draining our energy. Because I can tell you that's what it is for me. I'm doing tasks all day right now that just drain my energy. And so at the end of the day, I feel exhausted because I'm not doing anything to lift myself back up.
Right. Right. I spent almost half the day on Friday just doing administration things like invoicing and finances. That took forever because I hate it. It's like a mental drag for me. But this morning I knocked out like a 10-page proposal in an hour. I'm like, but that's not possible. But I was excited about it.
Yeah.
I was ready to write. So I think, yeah, finding that what you want to take on and creating balance between those two things within your day, because we can't completely get rid of the ick tasks, right? But if we can intersplice them with some energizing tasks, then you're going to be a little bit more balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you asked how do we put those things back in? I think it's a lot to ask to just say, I'm going to go from, and now I'm not doing these things, so I'm going to add them all back in. So, how can you gradually, like, okay, I notice I'm not cooking. Can I cook one night this week? Can I cook 2 nights next week? And start to gradually build that stuff back in.
We're working on it.
Yeah,
We've got one meal planned this week. I'm very excited for it.
that's great.
It's going to be very relaxing.
So, another thing I think, it's kind of feeds into it, right? But shifting our perspective, reevaluating what our priorities are, um, looking at how we're spending our time versus our priorities.
Great.
Um, you know, are there parts of your job that we're so locked into that we can't see something that could change when really it's could be possible to shift that?
How do you look past that? Like, it's really hard for me when I get stuck in like, this is how it is to see what it could be without thinking like, that's a pipe dream. There's no way I'm ever going to get there. Like, I have this beautiful image of me one day, like working 6 hours and then spending the rest of my time making pasta from scratch or playing in my garden or playing fetch with the dogs, going for a 2 mile walk with them. Right now, that's a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. I cannot envision current Rochelle creating enough space to do those things. Like, how do you get there?
I think brainstorming could be really powerful. Bring somebody else into it who's kind of outside of your own little perspective of what you're seeing, your own mindset. They might look at it totally different. Um, if you had a friend who was experiencing what you are experiencing, what would you tell your friend? That can be a great way to kind of get out of your own way. Even
Okay.
just asking yourself, is what I'm seeing real or am I making it up?
Probably making it up,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, but and
yeah,
whether you have somebody else brainstorm with you, you do it yourself. Like, just give yourself that freedom to throw crazy ideas out there and see, something might come out of that.
I love it. Excellent.
um, Shifting your perspective, if there's a part or people within the organization who are really frustrating you, how can you shield yourself from them a little bit better?
I feel like that's a big ask for a lot of our listeners, because we can't always hide from our internal stakeholders, or in your case, external clients are very demanding. My case too. I don't know why I just threw that at you. It's not like I don't have clients too, and I don't have internal stakeholders. Um, but like, how do you say this? Because I feel like this is a question we get in a bunch of different forms for burning questions. Is like, how do I communicate either that I'm burnt out or that I'm at my limit or that I need space to those people? How do you shield yourself?
Well, that is our burning question. So maybe we come back to
Oh,
that later.
excellent. Excellent. I totally read the episode. Yep, I'm on it.
But I think, you know, finding support, finding positive people you can be around, finding an ally, which we talked about a lot.
Right.
Maybe that helps you shield from some of those people. Maybe it's, you know, you have somebody you really complain with a lot about what's going on, and it could be reframing that relationship so that it's not quite as complainy. Um,
Eh, I like my complaining. Just
so,
kidding.
so does fear. Fear likes you to complain too, Rochelle.
I know. Fear likes to drive my life. We're just constantly wrestling for the steering wheel. It's fine.
Yeah. Um, if this, I'm feeling this one right now too, a lack of acknowledgement or a lack of appreciation for what I am doing. So how can I give that to myself instead of relying on others to give it to me?
External validation versus internal validation, self-validation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so practicing five, writing down 5 things I acknowledge myself about every day could be a great tool or thing to practice just to kind of shift that.
Or as they're going along, I feel like I get to the end of the day and I've forgotten everything I've done. But, like, if I handle something really well, I'll start jotting that down, courtesy
Yeah.
of a tip from you as well.
Well,
I handled that meeting really well.
I think if you know you're going to do it at the end of the day too, you are paying more attention throughout the days to try to make that easier on yourself. It is really
It's
hard if it's
true.
at the end of the day and you haven't thought about it at all.
There's so many things up in my brain that I can't hold on to them if I don't write them down. So there's a lot of writing during the day.
I was doing a little research for this episode and I came across job crafting, and I love the idea of job crafting.
I like what it sounds like. What is job crafting?
So it's taking your role at work and designing it in a way that it's more meaningful for you.
Oh, I do love that. I love that very much. So
Yeah.
it's not just us doing a bunch of mindless tasks, it's us doing tasks that fill our cup.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you can even take the same task, and if you shift the way you view the task, you can feel very differently about it,
Yeah,
even doing the exact same thing.
I have to give if I could shift my perspective on admin work, that'd be great. I'll work on that for next time, report
But I
back.
mean, what's the purpose of doing the admin work,
Keeps the business running, keeps the lights on,
which allows you to do what?
do awesome things, like create and connect with people and do things like this. I couldn't do Burnout Banter if Armor Consulting wasn't doing okay.
Yeah. So now how do you view the you're calling it admin stuff, which I can tell just nobody can see Rochelle, but I can tell by how she's saying it, uh, how she feels about it.
It's not nice. It's not fun. I don't do admin. I mean, I do because I have to, but I mean, that I guess shifts it from this is something that I have to do to this is something that supports what I want to do. Maybe not perfectly how I want to phrase that, but it feels a little bit better to make it like this underlying structure that allows me to do the things that I like to do.
Maybe it's your structural engineering of the business or something like that.
Maybe structural engineering of my consulting business. I like it.
So that type of a shift of what we're doing on a daily basis can help pull us out of burnout too, I think.
Hey, agree. There's a lot of power in changing your perspective to one that's a little bit more positive.
Yeah, I mean, tasks that are monotonous, that don't have any meaning, that are deadline driven, all in a fast paced work environment just totally leads us down the path of burnout. And I think a lot of us do a lot of those things every day in construction.
I Yes, the more I interact with the proposal community, the more I discover more creative ways for proposal managers to waste time documenting and archiving and doing these crazy things that I'm like, wow, you spend how many hours a week just maintaining in order to do what you do? It has to be exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think from us going around and talking to people at conferences, I think being in the room when we're talking about burnout and seeing the connection of I'm
Mm.
not in this alone can be really powerful in helping pull people out of it too. So seeking out connection, finding continued opportunities for personal and professional development, um, finding coaches and mentors who can activate positive things in your life that you may not be seeing.
Right? Right? Just talking to other people about burnout. Like I said, I think at the top of the episode, burnout is so isolating and something in my early career that like felt taboo and like I shouldn't be talking about it, which just made it worse. But I feel like if you maybe not complaining, but if you can communicate with other people like what's happening, kind of talk your way out of it or talk your way through it, it'll help significantly to remind you that you're not alone in this battle.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, if you go back to where we started in the beginning with acceptance, right, without judgment and without resentment, I think when we are burned out and we feel very isolated, we're doing a lot of judging. We're having a lot of
Mhm.
resentment towards ourselves and others that we can't pull ourselves out of it. And so building that connection can really help us.
Absolutely. Two heads are better than one, also.
Yes, for
For
sure.
finding solutions and potential avenues for burnout recovery.
Yeah, and I think too, if you're not into it or not feeling it, volunteering to help somebody else go through what you may be experiencing can actually kind of open your eyes to some things that you might not see otherwise too.
Absolutely. Other perspectives are always great.
Yeah, I know when I was talking with my client about, avoiding bed, that's a huge one for me. Like I'll sit downstairs even though I'm tired, I'm falling asleep on the couch, like there is some avoidance that's happening. And so having this conversation with her and trying to help her through it actually helped me through it too.
I need to talk with both of y'all because I can't fathom avoiding bed.
You're not avoiding bed, you're avoiding the thing that's coming the next day.
Oh, okay. I get that. I get that. If I don't sleep, tomorrow won't come.
Right.
It's not how it works, but
Right. Comes either way, hopefully.
for most.
Yeah, and then I think another thing, I think we've talked about a girl I was talking to who had just had enough. She was totally burned out, couldn't take anymore, and so she just started putting boundaries in place and didn't care what the outcome was. And lo and behold, other people started recognizing and wanted those boundaries in their life, and they started putting them in place. And so, you know, we may have to reset expectations of our colleagues, expectations of our clients, family members in terms of what we're willing to give. And, we have to have those conversations so that we're not just coming across as giving up or not caring or, you know,
Right.
just being very honest about what we're experiencing and here's what I'm trying and, can you support me in this?
Right. I just want to emphasize how important that communication is because I feel like this whole term of quiet quitting that was going around the internet a while back wasn't actually a bunch of people quiet quitting. It was a bunch of people putting up boundaries and doing what they can and what they could. And it looks like you have maybe checked out when you're used to being like the go-getter, the star player, the overachiever, and then you go back to just doing what you can do. Uh, and people start calling that the bare minimum, but it's it's the same thing. You're just communicating, "Hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I
I mean,
can do, and this is what I'm gonna give you."
that communication piece is huge though, because otherwise there will be probably negative repercussions of just saying no. I mean, we learned all about that last season, how you can't just say no.
Much as people say, "No" is a complete sentence. We have to get a little creative with it,
And I
and we
saw
have
a
to use
great
it.
quote doing research for this too, where it talked about being a good service professional doesn't mean you have to be a servant.
Ooh. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna put that, right next to proposals are an essential service, not an emergency service, which I saw hanging in a library. So is library services are essential, not emergency. Yeah, I just borrowed it from them, so I'm gonna put that right next to it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which is we're told as consultants, right? Like we have to do whatever the client wants. And there is
Nope,
something very servanty about that. So
I don't like that.
so do you think those 5 things help?
I think so. Let's just recap them really quick. So
Yeah.
prioritizing self-care, shifting your perspective and reevaluating your priorities, reducing exposure to job stressors, setting boundaries, job crafting, and seeking out connection. I think absolutely those 5 things are very actionable for anybody who's burnt out right now. And they're a good big start, honestly. If you can just tackle at least one of these, will be infinitely better than staying stuck where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with boundaries too, one thing that's really important with this is showing other people how if I protect this, this is how you're going to benefit.
Right.
Um, because they think they're benefiting now, right? So if you're working from 3 a.m. till 7 o'clock and your productivity is going down, yeah, you may be getting a lot done, but is it possible you could get more done and do it better if you were not working those type of hours for an extended period of time?
Yeah.
So showing people what that is, right? Like,
If I take this break and I come back fresh, I'll be able to provide a higher quality task or product than I would if you made me slog through it without that break. For sure.
And now it's time for burning questions.
now it's time for our burning question
That I spoiled.
that Rochelle spilled the beans on earlier. So comes from a marketing manager as part of a marketing team in a larger organization. How do I talk to my boss or team about feeling burned out without making things awkward or risking my job? Any ideas?
Well, I mean, I would throw out the idea of it being awkward first off. Like, it's going to be awkward for you, but for other people, it's just, we can't assume that they're going to think it's awkward, right?
Oh, we can't assume that you're the only one who feels that way either.
True. True. I don't know why I'm taking such issue with awkward.
No,
Maybe because I want to normalize like this feeling. I don't want to normalize burnout, but I want to normalize talking about it. So I don't think it
yeah,
should be awkward.
no, I agree. I think the
But
awkwardness is coming from the individual,
I think so. So I think first off, it's
which can get in the way of actually having the conversation in the first place.
right. Right. So we need to acknowledge that it is 2024 right now, and we can talk about this. And burnout is actively recognized by entities like the World Health Organization, and it's being studied and it's being talked about and applied to all kinds of industries. So, good place to start is it's not awkward.
Yeah, and it's I think estimated that billions of dollars are lost annually from burnout in
Oh
all
yeah,
organizations in the US.
yeah. Between time lost, employee turnover, productivity dips, it's a huge problem. So it's something we definitely need to be talking about. So be brave. First off, switch that awkward to brave in your mind. Um, and then I think when you're talking to your team, you just have to be very clear about this is where I am, this is what I can give, and be open to compromise. You know, is there something you can take on and shuffle off? Is there something that someone can support you with? And like Jeff said earlier, know that you need to communicate that benefit. Like, if you keep grinding me into a little crispy paste, I'm not going to be able to produce a good quality product anymore. But if I step back, if I take this boundary, I will produce something really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would even go so far as to kind of write down, even before you have the conversation, like set some goals for the conversation. What concerns do you want to raise? What actions do you want to be taken? What changes do you need their approval to make? So you're kind of thinking through this conversation instead
Okay.
of just instead of just doing it on the fly and doing it. The other thing I would say is creates what that will help you do is create some space from the emotion and get the emotion out so that we can kind of get back to being a little more logical about it.
Yeah, there's a clear difference in how I approach how Jeff approaches. I just charge it. Like, all right, let's talk about this. Um,
But I
but
do
no,
that
creating
too.
space is good.
I do that too, but that's when fear is in charge and I haven't processed the emotion and I'm not ready to find a solution. I'm just more complaining about the problem than anything, which I think is going to, if somebody comes to me and just says I'm burned out, you know, I don't know what to do with that. Well, I mean, I know a little bit more than other people what to do with that, but if we're not having a conversation about it, it's kind of hard to help that person.
My first question, if someone came to me and said I'm burnt out and that's all they dropped at me, my first question would be like, well, what does recovery look like to you? Because it's different for everyone, right? And it depends on where in the cycle of burnout you are. If you're at the point where you're just like, if you're super aware and you can tell you're on the cusp and you're burning out, that's going to be totally different from I am checked out. I'm totally fried. I can't do it anymore. I don't care about anything. So, yeah, I agree. If you have a plan, if you have like things that you will accept for your burnout recovery versus things that are non-negotiable, that'll also really help with that conversation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, and then when you're having the conversation, start with the problem. Yeah.
Right.
Burnout. Try to identify what the cause is. I had to think about it to figure out, oh, I'm doing tasks all day to drain my energy. This is a problem.
Right.
That's the cause of my burnout at the moment. Doing the job of 3 people is a source of burnout. Um, so there could be a lot of different causes. It could be something happening in your personal life that is factoring into work. And I may not have anything to do with work, but it's hard to juggle the two. So
Mhm.
identifying the cause, explain, here's some wider consequences that could happen if we don't resolve this.
Okay.
What you're hoping to accomplish, identify what you're hoping to accomplish through the conversation, and then be ready to answer some questions because they're probably going to come. But
They're inevitable. Invite conversation, I would also add to the end of that. Like, present your case and then make it a two-way street, right?
yeah, yeah, and, I think there could be a lot of different reactions to that, right? Like the manager could get defensive. Um, they could
You
wonder
could
whether
also be
they're
burnt
for
out.
another job. They could definitely also be burned out if they're just gonna just work your way through it. Um, so I
Right.
think you could, this is where not having an expectation of how the conversation is going to go can help you navigate any one of those possible outcomes or potential outcomes. And you can plan, right? Like, okay, they could react this way. If they do, this is where I'm going to try to take it. Or if they react this way, but we don't want to get so hung up and trying to predict what's going to happen that it stops us from having the conversation in the first place.
Right. That's where I was trying to get at with like have your non-negotiables ready. Because this is something that's I've experienced personally where I've gone into a conversation and been like, I can't handle this much work or I'm not qualified to be doing this type of task. And the options are essentially like, well, you continue doing it or
Or you don't have it.
you don't. or you don't have a job, or, we reassign it to someone else. And so like having those eventualities, like I would not accept you just have to figure it out, because that was going to result in a poor quality product for everybody involved. It was going to just destroy me personally and my burnout. Um, so that's how I would go into that conversation now, is just kind of what is acceptable to you and what is not, and what are you going to do if somebody's not willing to work with you on those non-negotiables.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of making it a conversation too is that if I'm coming into you as my boss and trying to have this conversation, most bosses aren't equipped to deal with this conversation either, right? So, how can we together figure this out? I'm not coming in here looking for you to have all the answers to make all my burnout go away. I just want to have a conversation and see how things could change so that I can get back to being me.
Right. Absolutely. Two-way street for sure. We need to be having the back and forth and figuring this out together.
And without risking your job, there is some risk in sticking up for yourself and putting boundaries in place. And, you know, I guess I always go back to, if somebody's really opposed to you taking care of yourself, is that really the place you want to work anyways? So,
Probably not, but you can make that decision on your own.
yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Think that answered the question?
Think so?
Well, a friendly reminder to all our listeners, if you have a burning question, you can email it to us at burnoutbanter@gmail.com. Please remember to like or subscribe to the podcast on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen, to make sure you never miss an episode. If you're going to be at SMPS NERC in Boston in April, Rochelle and I would love to meet you. We're doing a workshop there called Say No More to Proposal Burnout, one of our favorite workshops.
We love it.
And then I'm also going to be doing a workshop at AEC TechCon in St. Louis, Missouri in early May on a relationship between technology and fear.
Excellent. Burnout Banter also has a new LinkedIn page that you can follow, just in case you haven't seen it yet. Go check
Another
it
good
out.
place to get notified that new episodes are out.
Yeah, get some fun snippets from our hot episodes and our guest episodes. It's great.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody next month.
Bye.
Bye.